I was still buckling my seatbelt when the message came through. Not a call, not a voicemail, an automated alert. Notice your residential property has been pledged as collateral. I stared at the screen as the cabin lights dimmed. The plane was taxiing. People were already standing, reaching for bags, impatient to get home. Frankfurt to Chicago, 11 hours in the air. My body felt hollow, like I'd left something important over the Atlantic. The address on the notice was mine, not my parents', not shared, mine. The house I bought at 26, the one thing in my life I owned without conditions, without apologies, without anyone's permission. My phone vibrated again. A follow-up email from Midwest Trust, polite, clean, corporate. The kind of tone that assumes consent has already been given. I didn't respond. I didn't breathe. I just felt something cold move through my chest. That was the first snap. If you've ever had family treat you like you don't matter, like your work, your boundaries, your life are just tools they can reach for, take a second. Hit like, subscribe. This story isn't loud, but it's sharp, and it goes exactly where it needs to. By the time I reached baggage claim, my hands were steady again. That scared me more than the message. I didn't drive to my apartment. I drove straight to my parents' house. Same neighborhood, same trimmed hedges, same porch light that always flickered like it might go out but never quite did. I parked on the street, sat there for a moment, watched my reflection in the windshield. Dark circles under my eyes, coat still buttoned, hair pinned back from the board meeting that ended my week. I went inside without knocking. The door was unlocked. It always was. The kitchen light was on, too bright, white, surgical. The dishwasher hummed steady and indifferent. My mother stood at the counter drying a plate. My father sat at the table scrolling his phone. My brother Noah leaned against the fridge with a beer already open. No one looked surprised. My mother spoke first. Long trip. That was the second snap. I got a notice, I said. Noah took a sip. Didn't look at me. Yeah, we figured. I set my phone on the counter and slid it toward them. The screen lit up. My address. The bank logo. The number that made my jaw tighten. My father squinted. Don't make this bigger than it is. My mother finally turned. Her hands froze mid-air towel, twisted tight around a plate. We needed leverage. Noah smiled like this was a misunderstanding that would clear itself up if I stopped being difficult. It's temporary. You're never even there. That was the third snap. I waited. I wanted to hear how far they would go if I didn't interrupt. My mother set the plate down with a soft clink. Your brother needs a chance. You've had plenty. I looked at her hands, red from hot water. The towel clenched like she was strangling it. She didn't meet my eyes. Did you sign my name? I asked. Silence. The dishwasher clicked as it shifted cycles. Somewhere in the house, a clock ticked too loud. My father cleared his throat. We handled the paperwork. Handled. Noah shrugged. You always said family should help family. I laughed once. Short, sharp. It surprised all of us. You used my house, I said, without asking. My mother's voice hardened. Don't be dramatic. Gaslight. Clean and simple. I felt it then, that familiar pressure. The old instinct to soften, to explain, to be reasonable so no one would accuse me of being cold. I didn't. How much I asked. Noah tilted his head. Why does that matter? I picked up my phone. The glass was cold against my palm. How much? My father finally answered. 200. 200 what? 80, my mother said quickly. 280. But it's fine. It's an investment. In me. Without me. I nodded slowly. I could hear my own breathing now. Controlled. Even. No, I said. My mother's eyes flashed. No what? No explanation. I said. No discussion. Noah laughed. You can't just say no after the fact. I looked at him then. Really looked. Hoodie still had the tag loop tucked into the seam. Same brand he couldn't afford last year. His foot tapped against the cabinet like this was boring him. You forged my signature, I said. My father stood abruptly. Chair legs scraped the tile. Watch your mouth. That was the fourth snap. You used my documents, I continued. My identity, my property. My mother stepped closer, lowering her voice like I was a child about to embarrass her. "We raised you." There it was, the card they always played when they wanted silence. I leaned back against the counter, crossed my arms. The sleeve of my coat tightened around my wrist. I welcomed the pressure. "You raised me to earn my own," I said, not to hand it over. Noah rolled his eyes. "You're always like this, acting superior. Superior, for wanting consent." My mother shook her head slowly, disappointed in me in that familiar way that used to break me open. "You don't need that house. You travel. You're fine." Fine meant expendable. I picked up my phone again, locked the screen. The click was loud in the quiet kitchen. "I'm going upstairs," I said. My father blocked the hallway with his body. "There's nothing for you up there?" I met his eyes, held them. "There is." He moved. The stairs creaked under my heels. Same sound from childhood. Same spot near the landing that always complained. The house smelled like lemon cleaner and something old underneath it. I stopped at the top, turned back once. "If anyone thinks this ends with me arguing, I said you're wrong." My mother folded her arms. Her voice dropped flat and final. "You wouldn't destroy your own family over money." That was the last snap. And this time, something didn't break. It locked into place. I didn't grow up invisible. That would have been easier. I grew up useful. There's a difference. Claire can do it. Claire will handle it. Claire doesn't complain. That was the story they told about me. Over and over. Until it stopped sounding like praise and started sounding like permission. I left the house at 18 with one suitcase and a dented sedan that burned oil. Not because I was brave, because staying meant being folded into their plans without ever being consulted. I enrolled myself. Filled out the forms alone in the student services office while other kids FaceTimed their parents. I worked mornings at a cafe that smelled like burnt espresso and wet coats, then evenings at a shipping warehouse on the edge of town. Concrete floors, yellow lines, the beep of forklifts cutting through the dark like warning shots. When I couldn't afford rent one winter, I slept in my car. Not dramatically. Not for long stretches. Just enough nights to learn which parking lots stayed quiet after midnight and how to crack a window without letting the cold bite too deep. I kept a blanket in the trunk and my textbooks in the back seat. I learned how to wake up without looking tired. No one knew. I didn't tell them. There was no point. Noah, on the other hand, never learned how to be uncomfortable. He stayed home. Same room, same posters, same childhood desk. When his grades dipped, there was a reason. When he quit something, there was an explanation. When he needed money, it appeared quietly, seamlessly, like that was just how life worked. I didn't resent him. Not then. I was too busy surviving. I took night shifts when the warehouse was short-staffed, midnight to 6, the kind of hours where your body forgets what day it is. I'd come home smelling like cardboard and oil hands' aching ears still ringing from machinery. Then I'd shower fast and head to class. 3 hours of sleep felt like luxury. At 22, I started taking evening courses in contract law. Not because I planned to be a lawyer, because I wanted to understand the language people used when they wanted something from you but didn't want to ask. Terms, clauses, liability, consent, words that mattered. When I finally bought the house, a small place, nothing impressive, I didn't tell anyone right away. 3 bedrooms, 1 story, quiet street. The backyard wasn't big, but it was mine. I closed on it on a Tuesday afternoon and drove there alone. I unlocked the door, stood in the empty living room, listened to the echo of my own breathing. No champagne, no hugs, no photos. I ordered takeout and ate it on the kitchen floor. When I told my family weeks later, my mother smiled thinly and said, "That's nice." My father asked how much it cost. Noah asked if he could crash there sometimes. They never came for a housewarming, never asked to see it. Never helped move a single box, but they remembered the address. That's the part that sticks with me now. They remembered when it was useful. Whenever I traveled for work, they'd mention it casually. "You're gone again, right? That place is just sitting there. Seems ashamed to waste space." They treated the house like a tool left on a shelf, something borrowed by default. I paid for a cleaner when I was overseas, a gardener twice a month. I left a spare key hidden where my father suggested. He said it was smart. Just in case. I believed him. Every favor came wrapped in familiarity, every request softened by history. I covered a car repair, then a tuition gap, then a short-term loan that never came back. Each time there was a story, a setback, a reason. Noah always had a reason. I never asked for repayment. I didn't want to be that person, the one who keeps score. Looking back, I realized they were keeping it for me. In their version of events, I owed them. For raising me. For helping when I was young. For not asking questions when I left. Success to them wasn't something I earned. It was something I accumulated and therefore could be redistributed. Like excess. When I flew home twice a year, I stayed quiet. I didn't bring work up. Didn't correct their assumptions. Let them believe what they wanted. That I was always busy, always fine, always capable. That word again. Capable meant available. I saw it in small moments. The way my mother would glance at me before saying no to Noah, then soften. The way my father would say, "Your sister understands," without checking if I did. They never asked if I was tired. They never asked if I wanted anything. By the time I landed that role overseas compliance risk management, the kind of job that lives in the margins, I had already learned how to disappear without leaving. I sent postcards, gifts, money when it was needed. Distance felt safer than confrontation. So when they used my house without telling me, it wasn't sudden. It was inevitable. They didn't see it as theft. They saw it as efficiency. Why bother asking the person who always says yes? Why warn the one who never makes noise? I wasn't angry that night in the kitchen. Anger would have meant surprise. What I felt was clarity. This wasn't about Noah's business idea, or money, or even the house. It was about a pattern so old, it felt invisible to them. They didn't see me as a daughter with boundaries. They saw me as infrastructure. And infrastructure doesn't get consulted. It gets used. I went to bed that night fully dressed, sat on the edge of the mattress for a long time, hands resting on my knees, listening to the house settle around me. Pipes ticking, floorboards adjusting. The sound of a place that assumed I'd always be there. I didn't cry. I didn't pace. I just sat there cataloging every moment I'd mistaken silence for peace. That was when I understood something simple and irreversible. They weren't going to stop, not unless something made them. The house didn't sleep. It never had. It just went quiet enough to pretend. I lay on the guest bed, staring at the ceiling fan, watching the shadow of its blades cut slow circles through the dark. My phone sat face down on the nightstand, silent. No more messages, no apologies, no explanations. Down the hall, Noah laughed at something on his phone. A short burst, then silence again. I checked the time. 1:18 a.m. I hadn't slept. I wasn't going to. The mattress dipped when I stood. The floor complained softly under my bare feet. Same spots, same sounds. Muscle memory from a life I thought I'd outgrown. I slipped on a hoodie and eased the door open. The hallway was narrow, dim, lit only by the small nightlight my mother still kept plugged in near the bathroom. Its glow barely reached the framed family photos lining the wall. I noticed not for the first time which years I appeared in and which ones I didn't. I stopped at my father's study. The door was ajar. It always was. As if the room itself trusted everyone who passed by. The air inside smelled like old paper and dust and the sharp bite of aftershave. Moonlight slid through the blinds, striping the desk in pale lines. The same oak desk where Noah had done homework, where my father paid bills, where everything important in the family seemed to pass through, eventually. I closed the door behind me. Slowly. No click. My heart didn't race. That surprised me. I knew exactly where to look. Bottom drawer, right side, never locked. I pulled it open just enough for the wood to whisper. Folders, stacks, years of documents, organized just well enough to feel responsible without being careful. Tax returns, insurance statements, old warranties for appliances that had been thrown out a decade ago. Then I saw the envelope. Thick, white, official. Midwest Trust. I slid it out. The paper was heavier than it should have been, the kind banks use when they want things to feel permanent. Mortgage agreement. My address. Loan amount, $280,000. Borrower, Claire Donnelly. My name sat there in ink that almost looked like mine. Almost. I didn't react. I didn't swear. I didn't sit down. I just stared at the signature. The loops were wrong. The pressure uneven. The cross on the T too sharp. Whoever signed it knew my name, not my hand. Forgery doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers, and you recognize the voice. I flipped the page. Attached identification. A scan of my passport. My chest tightened. The edges were cropped poorly, like someone had rushed. The resolution grainy. But the photo was mine. The number matched. The issue date, too. They'd scanned it from the copy I left in the home safe years ago. The one my mother insisted they keep just in case. Trust leaves fingerprints. I pulled my phone from my pocket, disabled the flash, took the first photo, then another, and another. Front page, signature close-up, ID attachment, page numbers, footer codes. I didn't rush. I didn't shake. I documented. Under the mortgage packet was another folder. Loan application. Purpose of funds, local startup expansion. Borrower, Noah Donnelly Enterprises. I almost smiled. The projections were laughable. Handwritten notes in the margins, revenue assumptions pulled from outdated articles, expenses rounded like guesses, no real collateral listed, except my house. I scrolled through page after page. Influencer marketing, equipment costs, a temporary warehouse lease. The math didn't work. It never had. I took more photos. Then I noticed the notary stamp, faded, smudged, the seal incomplete, a shortcut. Banks miss shortcuts when they want deals to move faster. I slid the documents back into place exactly as I found them, aligned the edges, closed the folder, shut the drawer. The room felt smaller now, like it knew something had changed. In the hallway, Noah's door was closed. Light off. He was snoring. I stood there for a moment, listening. This was the part that hurt more than the papers. He slept easily, like someone who had never been afraid of consequences. Back in the guest room, I locked the door, sat on the floor with my back against it, opened my phone. I compared the forged signature to the one on my driver's license, zoomed in until the pixels blurred. The difference was obvious, even to someone who didn't know handwriting. I uploaded everything to a secure cloud, encrypted, labeled, backed up twice. Then I emailed the files to an account only I controlled. When it was done, I deleted the photos from my phone, cleared the trash, turned on airplane mode. Only then did I breathe out. The house was quiet again. But it felt different now, like a stage after the lights go out. Familiar but no longer comforting. I didn't feel sad. I felt precise. That surprised me too. I lay back on the bed, fully dressed, staring at the dark ceiling. The fan spun slowly overhead. I counted the rotations until the numbers stopped mattering. At some point, the thought arrived fully formed calm as a verdict. They hadn't crossed a line by accident. They'd stepped over it because they thought I wouldn't notice. Or worse, that I would notice and still stay quiet. I sat up, picked up my phone, typed one sentence in my notes app. Not angry, not emotional, just true. This isn't a family issue. It's a legal one. That was the moment I stopped being their daughter and became the owner again. The bank smelled like polished stone and burned coffee. It was 9:12 a.m. on a Tuesday, which meant no one expected trouble. I didn't have an appointment. I didn't need one. I walked in wearing the suit I reserved for audits and boardrooms, charcoal sharp lines, no softness anywhere. My heels struck the marble floor with a rhythm that made heads turn without me asking for attention. I gave my name at the desk. Calm, clear. I need to speak to a loan manager. The teller glanced at her screen, then back at me. Do you have an appointment? No, I said. But you have my house. That did it. 5 minutes later, I was escorted past frosted glass walls into a private office that smelled faintly of cologne and stress. The man behind the desk stood halfway, then sat again when he realized I wasn't shaking hands. Mid-50s, wire-frame glasses, tie pulled a little too tight. His nameplate read Evan Brooks. I set my leather folio on his desk and opened it without ceremony. Inside were clean printouts, side-by-side signatures, timestamps, compliance checklists. I didn't explain. I didn't introduce myself again. I slid the first page forward. "That's not my handwriting," I said. He adjusted his glasses, picked up the paper, then the second page. His brow tightened almost imperceptibly. I placed the passport scan next. This wasn't verified in person. Silence. I added the notary page. Stamp incomplete, seal misaligned. He swallowed. "You funded a mortgage using forged identity documents." I continued. "Without live verification, without borrower presence, against your own internal controls." I finally looked at him. "That's a federal violation." He leaned back slowly, hands clasped. "This loan was processed 3 weeks ago." "I know," I said. "I have the wire trail." Another page slid across the desk. Account numbers redacted, dates circled in pen. I wasn't angry. I wasn't rushed. I was surgical. He exhaled through his nose. "What would you like us to do?" "Ms. Donnelly." I closed the folder. The snap was quiet but final. "I need control returned," I said. "Or regulators informed." That was it. No raised voice, no threats, no theatrics, just a choice. He didn't answer right away. He stared at the desk, calculating. Quarters, reports, headlines. Finally, he nodded once. "We'll escalate this internally." "You have 7 days," I said. "After that, I stop being discreet." He opened his mouth. I stood. "If anyone from this branch contacts my family before your formal notice goes out," I added, "I'll assume bad faith." His face drained of color. I left him there, surrounded by glass and consequences. Sunday dinner was at 6. It always was. Like tradition could erase anything that happened during the week. I arrived at 6:01. I didn't come alone. My attorney, Rachel Myers, walked in beside me, navy suit hair pulled back tight, briefcase in hand. Behind us came Mark Ellison, a retired compliance auditor who now testified in civil cases. Neutral, unrelated, unimpressed. The room shifted when they saw us. My mother froze near the stove spoon, hovering over a pot that smelled like rosemary and garlic. My father stood at the head of the table, napkin folded too neatly. Noah sat already, phone in his hand leg, bouncing. "You brought guests," my mother said, forcing a smile. "Counsel," I replied. Noah laughed. "Is this a joke?" I took my seat. Placed a folder on the table, thick, white, official. Rachel sat beside me, Mark across. No one reached for their forks. Rachel opened her briefcase and slid out a stack of papers, aligning them with practiced precision. She spoke first. Under federal statute, she said, voice level, "The use of forged identity documents to secure a mortgage constitutes identity theft and bank fraud." Noah's smile slipped. My father cleared his throat. "This is family business." Mark leaned forward slightly. "Not anymore." Rachel continued. "The loan amount is $280,000. The collateral was obtained without consent. The bank has acknowledged procedural failure." My mother sat down hard. I slid the signature page toward Noah. "My name," I said. "Not my hand." He stared at it. Blinked. Once. Twice. "Claire," my mother whispered. "It was temporary." "Temporary theft is still theft," Rachel said. I didn't look at my mother. I laid out the timeline. 7 days. Full repayment. Principal interest fees. Wire transfer to an escrow account controlled by my attorney. If the deadline is missed, I said we file Monday morning. My father's hands shook as he reached for his water glass. "You'd ruin us." I met his eyes. "You did that when you signed my name. No shouting, no crying, just air going thin." Noah pushed his chair back. "You can't be serious. This is my future." I tilted my head. "My house was not your future." Rachel slid one final page forward. "Garnishment orders are prepared. Pension assets are subject to attachment." My mother made a sound like she'd been punched. I stood. "This is not a discussion," I said. "It's a notice." Rachel closed her briefcase. Mark stood with us. No one followed. Behind me, my mother's voice cracked sharp and desperate. "You'd choose papers over blood." I paused at the door. "Blood chose first," I said, and I walked out. The first sale happened on Tuesday. Not a conversation, not a reconciliation, a transaction. My mother drove to a pawn shop 15 miles outside town, the kind tucked between a vape store and a shuttered nail salon. She took off her wedding band at the counter, white gold, thin, polished smooth by decades of habit. The clerk weighed it without ceremony, quoted a number that didn't match the years it had taken to earn that ring. She accepted anyway. Money doesn't care what something meant to you. That was lesson 1. By Wednesday, my father listed the truck, the old pickup he swore he'd never sell, original paint, engine rebuilt once. He taught Noah to drive in it, taught me how to parallel park with one hand on the wheel and the other clenched in my lap. A man showed up with cash and a trailer. No test drive, no sentiment. The truck rolled away while my father stood in the driveway, keys gone, arms hanging useless at his sides. He didn't call me. That was lesson 2. Noah tried to save his dream by cutting around the edges, sold his gaming setup, a laptop, sneakers he never wore outside. He listed things online with the word urgent in the title like speed could replace value. It didn't. The startup vanished quietly. No announcement, no dramatic collapse, just unanswered emails and an empty workspace he'd never actually used. Dreams built on stolen ground don't survive exposure. I didn't step in. I didn't offer to bridge gaps, didn't suggest compromises, didn't send a single dollar. Silence isn't cruelty when it's protecting a boundary. By Friday, my father picked up night shifts. Security, warehouse perimeter, 12-hour rotations. The kind of work that keeps you awake because your body knows sleep will come in fragments. My mother added hours at the library. Early mornings, late returns. She stopped texting. The group chat stayed quiet except for receipts and numbers, screenshots of deposits, totals inching upward like a heart monitor refusing to flatline. I watched once. Then I muted it. I didn't celebrate. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt finished. When the deadline passed, the paperwork moved without emotion. Courts don't care how long you've known someone. Judges don't weigh guilt against intention. Facts do their work. Pensions were garnished. Accounts monitored. Noah filed for relief and learned that starting over doesn't mean starting clean. I didn't attend the hearing. I was already gone. Minnesota was not part of a plan. That's why it worked. I found the place on a map first, then in person. A small town near a lake that stayed quiet even in summer. No one asked where I was from. No one recognized my name. The house was smaller, 2 bedrooms, 1 bath. A screened porch that faced the water instead of the street. I bought it without telling anyone. Signed alone, took the keys without ceremony, no spare copies. I moved in with only what fit in the car. The first night I slept with the windows open, listened to water shift against the shore. No traffic, no clocks ticking too loud. I unpacked slowly, books first, then dishes, then the things that felt like anchors instead of trophies. I changed my number, blocked the old ones. When messages slipped through, I didn't read them twice. There were apologies, then accusations, then pleas framed as concern. You're tearing the family apart. You've changed. We don't recognize you. They were right. Change is the point. I wasn't cold. I wasn't bitter. I was intact. Some mornings I walked along the lake before work, coffee steaming in my hand, breath visible in the air. I liked the sound my boots made on gravel. It reminded me I was grounded. At night I cooked for one, ate at the table. No phone nearby, no tension waiting to be triggered by the wrong word. Peace doesn't announce itself. It just stays. Months passed. The noise faded. Consequences settled into routines. Lives adjusted around the absence of what they once assumed was always available. Me. I didn't check on them. Not out of spite. Out of clarity. My life was no longer a shared resource. It was mine. Sometimes I thought about the girl who learned early how to be useful, who confused endurance with loyalty, who believed silence was kindness. She deserved better, so I gave it to her. Family isn't who raised you. It's who respects the life you built.